Hey guys, welcome back. Today I'm going to be jumping through AI cold outbound. So this is what I do for a few clients. And I'm just going to be jumping through the basics. So this is going to be a summary of all the kind of different parts, 5 to be exact, and all kind of moving parts that I would want to know if I was starting out, and the things that you definitely need to know. This can go much deeper, and this is kind of a topic that I think I have quite a lot of kind of understanding on. But yeah, this could go a lot deeper, but this is kind of an overview. So these 5 parts could all probably have their own video. And I have kind of made videos on these parts already. Some of them, not really, only probably 2 of them maybe. But yeah, this is just going to be a kind of brief overview. So if you watch this video, you can kind of get a good understanding of how it works, what it is, and how you can kind of do it to some sort of degree. And yeah, I'm also showing one of the scrapers I use. That I use for a few clients, or kind of roughly the same scraper. So yeah, you can also kind of copy that. But yeah, without further ado, let's just jump in.
So hey guys, yeah, here is a kind of diagram that I created. Hopefully you can see, but it's basically summarizing the 5 main kind of pillars that I would focus on when starting an AI outbound kind of campaign. So these are things that are just non-negotiables and things you must know, basically. It goes way deeper than this, but these are things that I kind of wish I knew. That would have saved me a lot of time. So this is when you kind of onboard. You want to first establish this with your client. It's just going to make life a lot easier, and it's going to improve results before you've even sent a single email. So you want to work out who they're targeting. You can't be targeting every niche. So when I say targeting, let's say they are a marketing agency. Some of the niches that they're going to want to target are going to be better than some niches that they want to target. So you kind of need to know what niches are good and what niches aren't as good, if that makes sense. So with cold email, I've found that usually niches that live in their inbox. So these are going to be, e-commerce companies, things like that. They're going to be giving you the most kind of replies because they're literally on their computer all day in their inbox. And you also want to make sure these niches aren't too saturated. So yeah, I'm not just talking about marketing agencies, but just in general, like whoever you're working with, whoever they want to target, you need to make sure it's actually a good kind of niche to get into. And you need to help them with this. You can't just be saying yes to every niche. You got to be realistic and say, look, this might not work as well as you expect. Now you want to work out their offer. So more irresistible, the better. So I'm sure you guys know what an offer is, but it's going to kind of be different in a cold email. So you kind of just want to make 0 risk, and make it kind of clear on the kind of outcome of the offer. So let's say the client you're working with does maybe they have like a SaaS app that I don't know, manages your like CRM or something like that. Let's say that's what you're selling. You want to be like, this will be free until, or like we work until X outcome has been achieved. Until then, we work for free, or something like that. Something where there's just little risk. That's not really a good example, but you kind of know what I mean. You want to make the outcome really obvious. Some offers are better than others. So offers that directly impact gaining revenue for a company are going to be the easiest to sell, because obviously every business wants more revenue. So if you can sell an offer that directly does that, it's going to be a lot easier. And if you can tie that to 0 risk, even better. But this could be a whole video. A lot of these points that I'm going to talk about could be a whole video. So yeah, but that's kind of the bread and butter of it. Now, secondly, this kind of ties in with offer is the lead magnet. So when with cold email, they don't know you at all and they don't trust you at all. So to pair with an offer, I almost always try and get a lead magnet from my client. So this is going to be something like, if they put their hand up for it, they get X thing for free, and it's kind of breaking the ice, sparking interest, a bunch of other sort of things. So this is going to be something like a free video, a personalized loom, where you kind of go over their actual website or whatever you're trying to do for them. Obviously, you're not going to be recording it. Your client is going to be recording it. You can also do like an audit through like a PDF file or something like that. I've had clients do that. The possibilities are kind of endless, to be honest, but yeah, something that you can give them for free, even like a free website or something, if that's in your realm. But yeah, this is just going to completely break the ice and kind of stop them in their tracks when they're actually reading the email. And lastly, but probably this is definitely important, is case studies. So these are this is what you want to be dropping in your copy. So if you have good case studies and you're name dropping real companies that are recognizable, these are going to obviously just make your whole entire offer and your company in general seem more legit. So if you say we helped X company do Y outcome and X company is recognizable, it's a real company, they can go search it up, obviously that's going to make you look a lot more credible. So think about that. So these tips are kind of tying into copywriting, but these are definitely things you want to get off your client before you start anything. Now, lead gen and scraping. So this is kind of what you're going to be spending like 80% of your time doing if you actually run cold email and cold outbound like I do. You're going to be spending probably a lot of your time doing these two things, lead gen and enrichment. So, and copywriting, I guess, but once you find good copy, you can kind of stick with it and then slowly change. But anyways, back to lead gen. So methods for this include using Apify. So I made I wouldn't say a mistake, but Apify, you may know what it is. Basically, you can just like kind of not rent out, but like use scrapers that other people have made. So like Google Maps scrapers, Facebook scrapers, whatever. I didn't really use Apify in the beginning. I was like, oh, why would I pay if I can just make them myself? But the thing you got to realize is when you make them yourself, you have to manage your credits, you have to manage how much usage you're using. And once I scaled to a certain amount, it was actually cheaper to use Apify than it was to actually run it myself, because with Google Maps and like LinkedIn scrapers and stuff like that, once you reach a certain amount when you're using, Google Console and stuff like that, you actually do get charged if you scrape like a certain threshold of leads. So I kind of moved away from that and started using Apify, and yeah, I've just not really looked back, because you're kind of using someone else's console instead of your own, if that makes sense. Well, we don't really know how they do it, but I'd rather be doing it on someone else's interface, if that makes sense. So yeah, I'd rather pay $30 to $50 a month for Apify and be able to scrape as much as I want than have to worry about my own usage and not overextending and stuff like that. So yeah, and it also is just a lot easier. Secondly, Apollo and an email finder. So these are APIs which you can kind of find decision maker contacts. So I'll show you an example in a second, but how I kind of run things now is I will use Google Maps scrapers to initially scrape leads, and then I might get AI to try and find their emails that's in their website. So I'll clean up their website HTML, turn it into real clean text, and then use either code or AI to try and find an email. But if I can't find an email, what I'll do is I'll use one of these two, probably Apollo, and I'll use an API in N8N, and that's going to allow me to find decision makers. So I will show you this workflow. So this top row is doing the initial Google Maps scraping. I think I've covered this exact kind of scraper. Well, it's not really a scraper, an enricher, in another video. But basically what this does is I'll download, 1,000 or 2,000 Google Maps leads in X industry from Apify. Then I'll paste them into a sheet. So it won't look like this. These are all been enriched, but if I scroll down to the bottom, this is what it'll look like. So I'll have the name, Google rating, I'll have the city and all that stuff. Have all of these, and then I import that into a sheet. Then I search the rows, find the rows that haven't been enriched already. And then, as I said, I scrape their website, turn it into clean text, and then look for their email. And then, I use AI to kind of further enrich there. So I'll get, for that example, this is tradies, and I think this is a website offer. So I'll go over this in a second anyways, but what I'm doing here is I'm scraping their website with AI and then finding things that aren't good or need improvement. So SEO, image branding, things like that. And then if there's something that's not good, if their website's already perfect, I just discard them. I go down this false lane. But if their website has something that could be improved, I add it into the personalization value, and then I send that straight to my campaign management. So that's going into nitty gritty. That's going to be extremely based on what your niche is, what your offer is. But that's an example of how I kind of use AI to enrich, if that makes sense. But anyways, so that's the initial scraping. And then if I can't find, if we're doing this method where you're, getting emails through coding and scraping a website, you're not always going to get that email, and you're only going to really get info at emails. So this is where this comes into play, this bottom row. So I'll just attach that. And then what happens here is you can see an Apollo API. I use two, so I get the person and then I enrich the person. And then, so I go through each row that doesn't already have an email. And then, I enrich it with Apollo. And then I think that's to clean their website, so I can still do that enrichment that I was talking about. But so that gives me a lot better of a chance of finding emails than just doing basic JavaScript kind of cleaning. And the advantage of this as well is you're going to get emails that people don't already have. So everyone's kind of doing this, but you're going the extra step and, testing to see if there's any more kind of emails left in that sheet. So you're getting all the data that no one else could do or no one else has bothered to try and get. So these guys aren't going to be as bombarded with emails and offers like these guys up here that you're kind of fighting everyone else for, if that kind of makes sense. So anyways, back to the offer. These are the kind of other sources. So you can use LinkedIn jobs. This is all depending on what your offer is, who your niche is. So LinkedIn jobs is good for finding high intent leads. So people, let's say you go on LinkedIn jobs and you're finding companies that are hiring for marketing, and then your client's a marketing agency. These leads are going to be perfect because they're looking for exactly what you sell. As I said, Google Maps, and then you can even use AI. So I do this sometimes for one of my clients. Basically, he reaches out to e-commerce brands, and then I'll just ask Gemini or Claude, give me 1,000 e-commerce brands in X location, and put them into a CSV. It'll list them all, and then I'll run them through that exact scraper I just showed you, and I get all of the emails from the co-founders and stuff like that. So you can kind of use AI as well, which is pretty cool. But I would definitely recommend doing email verification for these. Now, lead enrichment and lead filtering, this is where AI comes into play. So, as I showed you earlier, you're using AI agents to enrich your leads, such as the example I showed you with the website audit sort of thing. So, using AI to scrape a website, work out its weakness, and use that as a copy. So, that's my example. And then you're using AI agents to also filter leads. So, you can use AI to research into a lead's meta ads. There's different Apify scrapers for finding Facebook pages and stuff like that. If they don't spend X amount on ads, you can discard the lead. So this is going to be important for someone who does meta ads or something like that. And the key thing here is possibilities are endless. So I would just get creative. Depending on your niche, depending on your offer, you can kind of find a way where AI will make your enrichment sound a lot better and help your scripts. Another example I've found is I've got an e-commerce client that I spoke about before. He does like Google ads, I think, and he needs each of the leads to have a certain amount of SKUs, or basically just products. So I get AI to kind of look at their whole site, count how many products they have on their site, and then if they don't have X amount, they get discarded. Stuff like that. This is huge. This is basically where you can kind of differentiate yourself in this current time. Now, copy and script. So this can be a whole video as well, but I will give you the tips that I kind of use for majority of my copy. Some copy differentiates depending on niche, or sometimes you want to add kind of authority, and you might stray away from this sort of stuff. But yeah, this is kind of the basic tips if I was going to create a script on the go. So less is usually better. So less than 60 words, if you can do that, that's good, because usually the shorter email, the better, depending on who you're reaching out to. So if you're reaching out to people who are getting bombarded daily with emails, you don't want to be giving them hundreds and hundreds of words because they've seen it all. If you're reaching out to someone who maybe doesn't get emailed as much, you could probably boost the words up. But yeah, this is something you're just going to be careful with. Now, you need to be doing follow-ups. So 3 to 4 step sequences is what I do. I've got one that does 2-step. The kind of thing that I like about doing shorter sequences is you can actually reach out to more fresh leads, because you're sending less follow-ups and more actual first emails. So that means you're going to be able to reach out to more more prospects per month. And that's obviously going to improve your chances of getting reply rates. So keep that into consideration, but it is also good to follow up. A lot of the people who reply to me are replying after the 4th email, stuff like that. So really important that you're actually doing some follow-ups. Doesn't have to be 3 to 4, but at least one other follow-up. Now, using a lead magnet as a CTA. So this is something that I do a lot. So I'll say, we prepared an audit for X business. Do you mind if we send it over in a thread? Or just email back yes, and I'll send over an audit. Something like that. Make it so it's super easy to raise your hand and answer. So super important. You want to make it a no-brainer. So if someone emailed me saying I made, I don't know, people email me all the time asking about like thumbnails and stuff like that, or whatever. If someone says I've made a thumbnail for one of your old videos and recreated it, do you want me to send it over? I'd be like, yeah, cool, send it over, because I'm curious, you know what I mean? So stuff like that is really important. As I said, make it easy for them to reply. Don't ask like 15 different questions and they don't know what to say. Just ask one question or try and receive one outcome. Don't make it so they have to kind of infer what you actually want, because then they're just going to go, I don't even know what this guy's looking for. I'm just going to, mark it as spam. So, yeah. And then, use lingo that resonates with the ICP. So, use lingo that resonates with a niche. So, if you're speaking to tradies, you want to avoid using all of these fancy statistics and things like that. You just want to provide value and show them how you can help them, if that makes sense. So yeah, a lot. But then if you're speaking to someone like a marketing agency who actually knows about all the stuff you're selling, and they know about ROI, and they know about, you know, whatever you're offering them, you can drop all these, you know, cool statistics and case studies and stuff like that, because they're kind of in the know. But yeah, you just got to be careful. The more kind of niche the ICP is, you can kind of get really creative with the lingo. So, you know, mortgage brokers, you can use lingo that is directly tied to that kind of stuff. You know, buyers agents and things like that. You can use those kind of bit of lingo, and it makes it look like you're actually kind of in that industry, if that makes sense. So yeah, that's a really good tip as well. But yeah, as I said, copywriting, I can make a whole video on this. I could be showing you all these different variations and stuff like that. But if I was going to start making campaigns, these are the things that I would listen to. But yeah, as I said, copywriting always changes as well. Stuff works for a few months, and then there's new things that are working, and then, you know, spam filters change and things like that. So yeah, you just got to kind of always adapt. But yeah, these are the kind of main tips that are always kind of keeping around for the majority of the time anyways. And now finally, campaign management. So you want to be using tools like Smartlead or Instantly. Don't be running this with gmail.com. Don't be running this on your personal email. It's just going to not land in any kind of main inbox. So for example, Instantly, this is what I use. I've got all my campaigns here, and yeah, basically you come here, look at your reply rates. You can, you know, I buy all my domains and email accounts through this app. I basically run everything through here. I can track everything. I can, you know, remove different sequences, stuff like that. This is all kind of things that you want to do. You need to have something like this. You can just drop all your leads in here, you know, delete leads, add, you know, different variables to leads, use their API, and then, you know, you can track all replies and stuff like that. So really important to have something like this. Smartlead I know is good as well. I actually kind of want to try Smartlead, but I think as long as you have one of those, you should be good. But yeah, campaign management. Also, I forgot to add here, if your client is somewhat of a big kind of name, that's something you can really drop in your email. So one of my clients used to work for, it was like Microsoft or Google or something like that, and I write that in every email, and that just basically just builds so much trust and kind of portrays you as an expert, because he probably is an expert. So that's something else you can do. I forgot to mention that. Anyways, yeah, campaign management. So reply to interested leads within 5 minutes. So this kind of is pretty obvious, but the faster you reply to a lead who opted in or raised their hand to whatever you were offering, the more likely they're going to be to actually follow up and go through with a call or whatever. So if you're applying to leads hours and hours, even days after, they've either moved on to someone who does exactly what you do, or they've just forgotten about you, or they're, you know, whatever. So you got to be doing that, whether that's through an automation or you know, get notifications on your phone or stuff like that, whatever. But I just do it manually because I like to kind of, I don't want AI to be replying to valuable leads yet until I find a way to do it properly. But yeah, anyways, now trying new scripts, keep changing, A/B testing till one sticks. So as I said, you can kind of in Instantly, you can have variations. So you can have I've got all of these variations running, so they're all just different scripts, slightly different with different offers, different subject lines, stuff like that. And then I can see which ones get the most replies. So I can see these have 2 and then that one has 1. So I could get rid of that one that has less replies, stuff like that. yeah, and then I can see which offers are working, which aren't. This is something you really need to be doing until you can find one that is triumphs everything and is actually working in the market very well. It's like a constant game of trying new things, basically. And then, yeah, ensure your delivery rate is good. So you can actually use programs to check spam words in your email. You can also, there's programs where you can like send test emails and then see if your DMARC and all your kind of verifications are working. These are all things you need to have down pat. I think Instantly does it all for me. So that's pretty good. But if you don't have something like that, then you need to be making sure your delivery rate is good. So every time you make a new script, run it through a kind of testing phase where you send it to various domains and see if they received it. Things like that is what you need to be doing. And then, yeah, 30 to 50 emails per day per email account. So you don't want to be doing over 50. Even over 30 is kind of risky, but sometimes I do 50. Probably not the best idea, but I do sometimes do that. But yeah, that's the max you want to be sending per email account. And per domain, you want to have max, I'd say 2 or 3 email accounts. I only do 2, but I think you can do 3 and you should be okay. But yeah, that's pretty much everything, I think.
So I hope you enjoyed that video. I know it was pretty just raw, unedited, but a kind of a lot of info to go over. And I know the kind of detail probably wasn't exactly what you guys were expecting. But yeah, as I said, this is such a broad topic, so I can only really go over these sort of 5 pillars in separate kind of videos in more detail. So let me know which kind of parts of this you want to see me speak about in more detail. I'd be happy to go over any of them, sorry. So yeah, thanks for watching. Also, one last thing, if you do run a B2B business and you do want AI cold outbound or just cold outbound in general, whether that's through email, LinkedIn, whatever, shoot me an email. My email's in the description, and yeah, I can kind of run through on a call where it sort of fits, what niche, what kind of offer you should go for, because I've done this with over 10 businesses. I know what niches work, I know what offers work, I know all these kind of intricacies. So yeah, if you want any kind of advice or if you just want to hire me, yeah, my email is in the description. So yeah, please shout me. But yeah, cheers.